play again. Okay. It always happens. Okay, so here are some strategies that work. So providing your students a voice and demonstrating interest in them beyond academics, you can start to develop an authentic connection in a person or even at a distance. So try to find those authentic connections that you can make with students, ask them questions about their lives, their interests, their passions, whatever you can to make these connections last. Conduct interest surveys and polls to uncover what your students like and dislike. Educators can use Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, even the polls feature in Zoom to collect interest data from your students to use in the future. In the traditional classroom, a researcher named Brophy observed that even if a teacher praises a child once every 5 minutes, the rate of praise for the average student would be once every 2 hours. That just won't cut it. As students enter the classroom, either physical or virtual, after making your greetings, ask them a question or listen to their response. Engage in short micro chats. Likewise, as you sign off your synchronous session or as they're leaving your physical classroom, don't shut down the meeting all at once. Don't shut down the lesson all at once. Release students one by one after providing them with a short goodbye, words of encouragement, feedback, or final thought. Sometimes you see when students leave or when they come into a building, a lot of times the teacher will be right there at the door to welcome them. So this way it helps them to feel like that you want them to be in that classroom. Encourage your learners to use the chat feature if you're online. A discussion on chat room etiquette is essential, but having a back channel or a space during your synchronous session is awesome. You can share a lot of information and content. We took attendance, for goodness sakes. In a little while, we'll do a question and answer inside of the same chat feature. Finally, sporadically plan for show and tell events for students to share any cool news projects they have been working on or an awesome experience. This really does help with social emotional learning. It really does help with making authentic connections with your students. Despite the long-standing tradition of doing just this, our jobs as educators not to mute learners and show them how smart we are. Rather, our job is to empower our learners to become independent thinkers and doers. In an online environment, when educators feel the need to lecture, they should keep it short. What should take up all of the time are the students thinking, discussing, and doing. And again, this goes not only online, but it also goes into the face-to-face classroom. Some strategies that work, strategies to encourage less talk and more questioning. Avoid long form lectures. Instead, I do what's called micro lectures, which are 5 to 10 minute quick little micro bursts of a lecture. And after that, they do something else. You can prepare questions to ask. You can do a Q&A session. You can do Socratic seminars. You can have them do something hands-on, brains-on, whatever. It breaks up your lesson into different instructional events. Again, use QA sessions to dig deeper into subjects, topics, etc. Don't count on yourself to come up with questions on the fly. A lot of times it doesn't work. We sometimes just off the top of our head will come up with a question that's very superficial, very simple. If you really want to dig deep, write down your questions beforehand. So this way you have a question bank to come to and deal with. This way we're going to help with your students. It'll make sure that you don't have to come up with something on the fly and you're prepared. Even if you don't get to a question, you can always ask it the next time you meet. Encourage students to ask and answer each other's questions in the chat feature. You don't have to be the only teacher in the room. They can help teach themselves. Again, use Socratic seminar, breakout room discussions, jigsaw activities, and what I also do, what I call hot potato, where you basically just go around and you keep on sharing, and after somebody answers a question, they call on somebody else. So it even takes the name out of calling on a student away from the teacher, and it becomes students calling on students to answer questions. At this point, I'm going to open up the audio channels and chat feature and share, and I'm going to ask you to share an idea you are going to hopefully incorporate. What are you going to do? What are you going to infuse into your classroom, both a virtual classroom or even face-to-face You can go into the chat box if you'd like to and share what you're going to do. You can unmute yourself and share as well. What do you think? Now, don't you all be bashful. I know you're teachers, and I know you have no problem with talking and sharing your experiences. Mita said student interaction. Yeah, think about how you're going to have those the student interactions. Absolutely. Tracy said show and tell work great during virtual learning. It also can work great to face-to-face. I'll tell you what, students, and it doesn't even have to be object-based. Kids love to share information, even through middle school, even into high school. They like to share what they're doing. It makes them feel proud of the situation. It makes them feel like they are that they're being heard by an adult. Yep. Getting to know interests, absolutely. Somebody else wanting to share out loud audio wise?
In the chat, people are saying they want to learn their students' interests. They love open discussions. They love digging into students' experiences. They want to incorporate smart board features like hot potato. You said the magic word, Ryan.
Yep.
Individual positive words when they're leaving. This one usually starts a class with what's good. I love that. This one likes the micro lessons that students can teach each other instead of always listen to the teachers. So somebody heard you. Giving praise to make students feel more confident, allowing them time to share and listen. Daily tallies and vote to learn more about students. Agree with micro lessons. Would you rather to get students engaged? Letting the students, one more time, access each other's work. Do show and tell in preschool, including their favorite books, stuffed animal, going to incorporate micro lessons to do student-centered lessons rather than teacher-centered.
And Jean Marie, just a big idea is a lot of times it's just not only about the students, but it's also about the teachers in here, giving people the opportunity to really kind of teach themselves. All these interns have now become a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all the things they do into the classroom, what they, the cool things that they've discovered, the cool tasks that they've witnessed or observed. Even giving a time for them to share is absolutely vital, especially for professional development. So anytime that could even be a tie-in professional development is let the teachers teach the teachers. Let the candidates teach the candidates. Absolutely would be awesome.
Yes, somebody added linking personal interest to class objectives. And to connect to what you said, Ryan, I observed an intern today who is concerned about little ones in her class, 5 little ones that she thinks maybe don't pay attention. And I'm like, sit them down one-on-one and tell them your story, just what you said. Let them see you as a human being and a person.
Absolutely. All right, let me dive back in. If you haven't got a chance to share and you did, don't worry. I promise you'll get more of an opportunity to share. So let me go ahead and share my screen again and hit the play button. So I am back on going to town here. Okay. So as educators, we have to understand that this is the digital generations we are teaching. As our generation was paper and pencil trained, this generation is what is called, I call it light and sound trained. Inherently, humans are all visual learners. We process information visually 60,000 times faster than we do text. Images, songs, slideshows, and video clips are excellent resources to share in a classroom or even at a distance. John Medina, who's a molecular biologist, states that people can remember the content of more than 2,500 pictures with at least 90% accuracy 72 hours after exposure, even though the subject only sees each picture for about 10 seconds. Let me repeat this. There is a 90% recall of the content of 2,500 images 72 hours after exposure with only 10 seconds of exposure per image. Recall rates 1 year later of those same 2,500 pictures is still an impressive 63% of the content of those 2,500 pictures. But the same research says that when new information is presented orally with no image present, for example, if I made this presentation without including all the visual elements that I do, 72 hours later, you, the audience, would only be able to recall about 10% of what was presented 72 hours previously. After just 72 hours, students will remember only about 10% of the content of the lecture. Medina says that this is it is clear that this is evidence that the traditional stand and deliver lecture method is just not as effective as it used to be. However, and this is very significant, the percentage of information retained goes up from 10% to 65% if an image is added to the new content. Let me explain what's happening here. Since childhood, the digital generations have been continuously bombarded by television, videos, and computer games that put colorful, high quality, highly expressive, and realistic graphics and sounds in front of students with little or no accompanying text. As a result, to the digital generations, images and videos are powerful enough on their own to communicate the message to and for them. As for the younger generations, the role of words increasingly is merely to complement the images. The result of this pervasive and chronic digital bombardment has been to considerably sharpen the digital generation's visual abilities. They are so bathed in bits that they think it's a natural part of their digital landscape. They're completely comfortable seeing and conveying information in visual formats. We learned from books. We were primarily trained to communicate primarily with words. Learning was linear, logical, left to right, top to bottom, beginning to end. Conversely, the digital generations are light and sound trained, which is a completely different cognitive process than the older generations use. So what implications does this hold for education and for educators? Our younger generations are growing up in what I call the YouTube era. They're completely immersed in a world of full motion video that they watch for entertainment and to learn from. They also create and share their own videos. In less than a generation, this has allowed students to move from simply being consumers of media to being prosumers who simultaneously consume and produce media. Amongst the youngest generations, visual communication is increasingly challenging the supremacy of traditional reading and writing. Although traditional reading and writing aren't going anywhere, the digital generations are more likely to express their ideas using simulations or video as they would be writing expository essays. So some strategies to employ in distance learning to kind of go with this type of learning attribute of our digital generation is shared previewed video clips with students. Now, these clips should be short. You don't want to drown them out with a 20 or 30-minute clip of something. What I mean by clip is if we think of YouTube, it's packaged into, a lot of times it's 3 to 5 minute clips. They're short, and they sometimes even present information even better than we can because they've been produced and narrated and edited and cleaned up, and they can constantly go back to it if the students don't understand it. You can also share something with an adult or with a parent if their students are struggling. So share these previewed video clips with students. Please also make sure you're previewing them, okay? I can't tell you how many times I've heard a teacher going and showing a YouTube clip and not realizing that they didn't preview it, and something bad happens, something negative comes through. As a teacher, you can also record narration for books, instructional directions, or feedback. There's plenty of apps out there that will let you record yourself, okay? For goodness sakes, I'm using Zoom right now and recording myself, okay? Add images to instructional resources to draw in their eyes. Make sure that these images are high resolution, that they look beautiful. Monitor your color use, your font size, and the amount of text on resources you share. You have to understand is that a lot of times when people produce or share content up, with the classroom or with students, a lot of time that writing or that type can be very small or even hard to read. Try and blow it up. Also, a lot of times people are really nervous when they see a ton of text on a page. Try and see if you can chunk it into smaller bits and pieces for them to kind of consume. Use images to introduce new topics, subjects, and ideas. Use video segments to introduce or reinforce new ideas. And encourage learners to record, edit, and publish their own videos. They love to do that. What happens when students own their learning? They become problem solvers. They develop growth mindsets. They learn to experiment and tinker. They develop creativity. They practice divergent thinking. They cultivate geeky interests. They chase their own passions. When a student gets to make a choice, they have a voice in their learning. After they leave your classroom, they will remember the freedom and value you placed in them. They will develop into what I call the lifelong learners. Choice boards, they provide students with the power to choose how to learn a particular subject or concept. This freedom encourages them to be more responsible, accountable, and independent in their learning. It also allows them to work on the activities at their own pace. The boards are useful for teachers as it enables them to identify and use student interests and preferences to stimulate active learning and student engagement. It's great too, because after you're done, you can always send these home with to parents, and they can further explore the topics that you're exploring in your classroom. Because a lot of times these choice boards become hyper connected. They're connected to outside resources, YouTube clips, Google Docs, websites that you've vetted, other types of resources that they may have access to. Some strategies that work. Of course, the breakout rooms. They can be absolutely great when it comes to think, pair, and share. However, in your face-to-face classrooms, you can obviously do think, pair, share real quick for collaborative learning. Do warm-up discussions, do exit discussions, do peer review sessions, play games, and virtual station work where each group doing something can switch tasks. Or if you're inside of the actual physical classroom, you can move around from classroom to classroom, from workstation to workstation, doing some tasks. Sometimes switching those tasks is great because they can do something for 5 minutes and do something else. It keeps their interests peaked. Here's an example of something. Students, write a paragraph to explain why the United States fought the Civil War. The write a paragraph directive is up there with pop quiz in popularity. Write a paragraph, repeat after me, complete problems number 1 through 4. If students complete these tasks, they have only demonstrated that they can follow procedural directions, not newly acquired knowledge. Educators must diversify their teacher toolkit and stay out of what I call the assignment rut. Here are close to 100 ways students can express their learning. Many can be performed during a distance or hybrid learning. You could have students create advertisements, audio recordings, have them create their own avatars, their own book jackets, their own commercials. They could do debates. They could do discussion boards, escape rooms. They could create journals. They could journal. They could do graphic organizers. There are literally 100 ideas here of ways that you can get students to express themselves. And the nice thing about this is it gives them a unique voice in your classroom beyond just write a paragraph or do problems 1 through 4, because a lot of times these are authentic ways of students to express themselves. What I'll do is I'll make sure that you get a copy of all these different ways and methods. I'll also show you the book that I just wrote that actually has over 100 of these resources, but also then gives you 300 digital resources if you're interested to both do this face-to-face, hybrid, or even 100% online. Change feedback into feed forward. As incredible as educators are, they cannot always provide timely, precise, and constructive feedback to their classrooms and to their students. With class sizes over 20, 25, even 30 students, it is challenging to stop the world, lock eyes with a student, and have a one-on-one conversation about their performance, feelings, and ideas. This has to stop. At a distance or in our classroom, it is absolutely possible to give effective feedback to each student. During online meetings, strategically plan times to share with everyone the strengths and good performance of each student. Instruct students in the nuances of providing constructive feedback. Provide students with the ability to work together, evaluate work, and provide and accept feedback in a positive manner. As learners improve in their exercise, they can begin to evaluate their own work. Send random emails and messages to students, letting them know how they are doing. You can even carbon copy their parents and their other teachers. Instead of text-based feedback, use audio or video commenting to send students personalized messages on their progress. Many learning management systems provide these features. If not, you can use Vocaroo, which is a free audio feedback tool where all you do is you literally record your voice and you send the link to a parent or a student. You can also play review games on sites that provide instant feedback to learners, such as Kahoot, Socrative, Actively, and there's also Seesaw, there's Nearpod, there's a lot of different apps and resources that are built in with now real-time options for giving feedback to students. At this point, again, I'm going to open up your audio channels and chat features and share an idea. Please do me a favor, share some ideas that you have when it comes to providing students with the learner agency or providing ways of doing feedback at this point. So let me hit the escape button and open up these channels. If you don't want to talk, you're more than welcome to hit the chat box and go to town. Yeah, Dwayne said VoiceThread. Absolutely, VoiceThread is a great tool for doing doing video discussion. You can also do Flipgrid. Actually, they call it now Flip. They got rid of the grid, but it's the same type of tool. Michelle said, love Seesaw. Yeah, Seesaw for preschools, absolutely. If you'd like to use the audio too, it is open and you are more than welcome to. Yep. Laura says, block it or block it. Yep. Classroom next one, Seesaw. Yep. Class Dojo, a lot of these. And this really does kind of tie in, all of these apps and strategies really do tie in with the digital learners and their preference in getting that instant gratification, that immediate reward. Yep, Raquel, I love, yep, Jamboard, absolutely. Google created a cool space. Class Tag, Class Dojo, popular tool. Yep, Kahoot works wonderfully, and you could do that. You could do that both. You could facilitate that face-to-face. You could facilitate that online. You could also even do it offline. You can also do it asynchronously where you're not around and just have them do the Kahoot. Boom cards. Yep. Always hear about new tools and resources. Excellent. Epic. Yeah. Epic. That's yep, said Epic. Those are the awesome books. My fourth grader, he was second and third grader at the time, loved Epic books. He sometimes he spent way too much time in Epic books. I don't know if that's possible, but he did. For those who don't know Epic books, they basically make books really truly interactive. They basically digitize and make them into the best experience for a book online for students. Yep, Word Cloud. David, excellent. Yep. Okay. Now this next tool, they have a read to me feature for preschoolers. Yes, and you can also even find other ones books that read along. Absolutely, Dreambox, Lexi and Dreambox used a lot in Howard County. Yep, excellent. So let me go ahead and I'm going to go back. Oh man, I tell you what, the chat box is absolutely filled with good stuff. Let me go ahead and hit the play button so I can get going. Okay. So I'm going to keep on giving these like little activities that are going to be helpful for you. The next one, and again, this will work both online or if you're face-to-face, it really doesn't matter. I like this because it allows you to do a couple things. It allows a teacher to work smarter, not harder. And that is to create what I call a housekeeping slide. So, you know, and again, it's like kind of creating a PowerPoint or a keynote or a Google Slides. It's basically organizing almost kind of letting your students into your lesson planning. So this housekeeping slide is basically, it is a slide that gives all the students just anything that is important to them for that class, that topic, for whatever. Hold on. Sorry, there it is. It's really helpful to create a type of slide. You basically will share important information as students enter and leave the virtual real world classroom. If you can see, a lot of students will do a lot of teachers will do quotes of the day. They'll provide the lesson objective. They'll watch a quick little 2-minute video on something. They'll provide some sort of way for the students to take attendance, so this way they can be responsible for their own attendance work. There is a site I'm going to share in just a second, and let me see, I think it's on the next slide, is slidemania.com/education. Provides a lot of these different templates that you can build your own type of housekeeping slide. And again, it's not just about being online or about doing synchronous sessions or anything like that. A lot of teachers, especially in middle and high school, do this so that this way they can kind of keep everything organized. If your student's absent, you can always email this information so they're not behind. They know exactly what happened in the classroom. And of course, your next slides could be the information that you're sharing or the resources that you're going to share with your students. It's a great way to disseminate information to your students, but it's also a great way to share it. If a student is struggling, if they're in special education, or if a student just needs extra help, you can always provide them with this slide. Again, it's just hitting a share button, and they can see everything that you went over. And again, it even ties into universal design for learning, where it gives them more ways to represent information, because they can always go back to it, read it again, watch the video again, experience it again, study from it. You're basically creating your resources into almost open resources. So again, it's slidesmania.com, and they have a lot of things in there. You just basically need to look up housekeeping slide. So again, the housekeeping slide can include just about anything helpful for students and parents. You can send it to the students that might have missed class. The ideas can work from a distance, in a hybrid classroom, or even face-to-face. It can also be emailed to a parent as a resource if needed. Some items to include, again, is the objective, an engaging video. The to-do list is really helpful. Homework, quotes of the day, and even world news if you want to keep them informed about topicality. This generation of learner is frequently criticized, derided, misunderstood, misrepresented, and disrespected in the media. They're often accused of being intellectual slackers and antisocial beings who lack even basic social skills. The research says that, on the contrary, for the vast majority, the digital world is a far from an isolating antisocial experience. Outside of schools, they're constantly immersed in a collaborative culture based on building relationships that allows them to interact not only with their classmates, but also with people who aren't geographically close. In fact, they're a highly social generation. Here's the difference. They're just not social the way that we think of social. The problem is that what they expect and constantly experience in their world outside of school with their games and texting and websites is often completely at odds with what they experience in the classroom. So after they have spent hundreds of hours of their lives playing games and exploring virtual environments, they come to school, where almost everything is controlled by adults, and they're compelled to sit in classrooms or Zoom sessions where things are hierarchical and unidirectional. They control nothing. For them, school is all about being passive observers and learning endless deferred gratification. I can absolutely guarantee you that it will not be possible much longer to engage young people in an educational system where the quality of experiences the schools provide aren't as relevant and engaging as the quality of the experiences they can get outside the school day. You're not going to like what I'm going to say, but for education to survive, education and learning needs to become as engaging as fun as a video game. The traditional classroom is not enough for them. Our challenge is to keep up with them. That's because the digital generations will never accept the traditional stand and deliver educational model. They need to be in a situation where they're controlling things, and that can never happen in a traditional school environment. So here's the big question. Why in the world am I learning what you're teaching me? And what possible connection does this have to me in my world? To be an effective 21st century teacher, we must first possess the very same 21st century skills that our students are expected to have. And in addition to those skills, we must be able to help all of our students obtain and develop 21st century skills. Look, I spent many years in the classroom. Anybody who knows anything about anything knows that the secret to success in the classroom has very little to do with being a good disciplinarian or classroom manager, and everything to do with creating an engaging methodology that compels students to want to be there. It's not about making students learn, it's about getting them to want to learn. Without motivation, there will be no learning. Ask yourself this question: would students be in your classroom if they didn't have to be there? Education in the 21st century needs to be about full body learning. The killer app and best one-to-one device for the 21st century learning is a good teacher, a teacher with a love of learning, an appreciation of the aesthetic, the esoteric, the ethical, and the moral, a teacher who understands Bloom, Gardner, Fieri, Piaget, and Papert, who knows how to different kids learn at different times and different rates. Today's learners are not the same learners that schools were originally designed for. And today's learners are certainly not the learners that many of today's educators were trained to teach. Beyond this, it's crazy to think that over 2 decades into the 21st century, we're still debating what 21st century learning looks like. Education continues to operate on assumptions about teaching, learning, and assessment that are targeted at students from another age that has passed us by. The world has changed in the past 20 years. Heck, it's changed in the last 3 years. COVID-19 demonstrated this point. So in the same way that we have every right to expect the digital generation to respect, understand, engage with our world and our values, we absolutely also need to take the time and effort to respect, understand, and engage with their world and their values. Just because we were here first doesn't mean we can ignore their world. It doesn't mean that our ways are better. And believe me, we ignore their world at our peril. What we desperately need is balance. Balance between our world and theirs, between traditional and digital learning environments. As you leave this section, the fundamental question you need to be asking is, how have you modified your instructional assumptions and practices to address the fact that these kids have fundamentally changed and continue to change? There's nothing stopping us from changing the way we learn and how we teach. And yes, I understand that change is hard, but the kids are absolutely worth it. What I want to do right now is this. In closing down my presentation, I'm also going to give you a little bit of, I'm doing okay with time. I'm going to give you a bonus little section in just a minute. What I want you to do right now is this. Go to the chat box. I'd like you to come up with 3 things you know now that you maybe didn't know before. I'd like you just to at least write down 1 or 2 items in the chat box of something that you've learned from this presentation. Devani said slides mania. Yep. Yep. They need to be taught in different ways. Excellent. Yep. We have to take some of that, what they do. Yep. 90%. Yep. They can keep. It's all about adding visual content to things. It really does help. Another trick is that you can actually put images. If you're worried that students aren't going to read what you give them, a lot of times if you put images to the bottom right-hand side of your, call them worksheets, but of your resources, student resources, a lot of times that'll get them to read everything, because a lot of times they avoid going to the bottom right-hand side of resources, because what they do is ultimately they read in what's called an F pattern. What they do is they start at the top, they look across the page, they come down a little bit, and then they read a little bit, like about halfway through the page, they go right down the bottom. They basically look in a big F. If you want them to go to the bottom right-hand side of the page, put an image or something, put something important, put a text feature. Yeah, must engage students, absolutely, and less with lecture, absolutely. Judy, spot on. Yep, involve them. They should students should not be passive learners. They should be engaged. Okay, because once they leave your classroom, they're going to be responsible for a world out there where they're going to have to be engaged in it. They can't just be passive. It's like it's like them leaving and not being prepared for what the world gives them. Yep, we should also get them to respect traditional learning as well. But a lot of times with educators and stuff, a lot of times we kind of fall back on our mindsets of how we learned education. A lot of the ways that was passive traditional learning. Yep, get the students where they are. Excellent. Oh my gosh, great feedback. Excellent participation. Thank you. All right, what I want to do right now is this. I want you to now come up with two questions you still need to have answered after my presentation. And hopefully I can answer them. If not, it's going to be a question that you can explore on your own as you kind of go through as an educational researcher. So what are two questions that you have? Even if you only come up with one, I'll be happy.
Can I ask via audio, or do you prefer this?
I don't do either. It doesn't matter with me either way. I will say a lot of people are very comfortable in the chat box. They're just going to town.
Yeah, I'm just tired of typing. My question is, so what is then kind of, in your expertise, the healthy balance, right? Because we say we don't want too much screen time, but yet we're incorporating a lot of visuals, regardless if it's just the teacher, up there on the visual technology versus them on the Chromebooks or tablets or what have you. So as we're moving towards this more of an engagement online, again, what's that kind of healthy, I don't know, is there a healthy percentage? Yep. What's the healthy balance?
We have to understand that all screen time is not created equal. Okay, so a lot of the times, and we have to understand this too, after just the best term to call it is fiasco. A lot of times when the fiasco occurred with the online learning with COVID-19, you have to understand that that was not true online learning. Online learning can be extremely powerful. It can be as good as face-to-face learning if done correctly. The issue is that you had 55 million kids trying to go online within a few weeks. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry. Education is not that flexible. The system of education has been around 125 years. It's not going to change overnight. And after a year or two of being online and doing hybrid learning and stuff like that, it got a little bit better. But the problem is that you also have to remember we had a virus that was keeping us from doing all the things that we truly loved. We couldn't, we are social creatures. We want to be in the same room. The problem is we couldn't be. So online learning wasn't meant to go from, you're not meant to go from 9 to 4 every day doing 7 hours of screen time. It just wasn't meant to be. It's terrible. It's not healthy. What you have to do is you have to break things up a bit. You want to do something that involves higher level thinking skills, when they create things and when they're critiquing things, when they're doing things that are, again, the higher levels of Bloom's taxonomy. You also want them to make sure that you're not having them, again, on the screen for over an hour, that they're doing things that are hands-on brains on. And you see, how do we incorporate tactile learning in preschool online? They can have manipulatives right in front of them. Okay, they can do it and engage in stuff like that. But at the same point in time, I also want them in face-to-face. I know it's not always possible, but it can. You can absolutely positively have them do something where it's hands-on, brains-on.
So do we send home manipulatives to them because parents don't necessarily have what we need them to have?
You can. Again, it has to be planned well. You have to tell your parents what to do, and you understand that you're going to lose some stuff. So I wouldn't send the most valuable stuff home, but yes, I would. And keep stuff simple. A lot of times they have a lot of things around the house already. And if they don't, you can also come up with substitutions. I had to, we did plants. We went outside with my son, and we had to take pictures of like roots and plants and stuff like that. We found some really interesting weeds. But and after that, they ended up doing digital art with it. So it was really kind of cool and engaging. And my son was able to do it, and he was at the time is in 2nd grade. So there are ways to do it. You just have to think strategically about it, how it's going to go about and delivering it. So, oh my goodness, how do you tie these?
Yes.
Wonderful? Yep. I'm sorry.
Maybe I can narrate for you, Ryan, a little bit, because people are looking for resources. So I know you're going to send us this PowerPoint that we can send out.
Yes, I will give you some sort of resource. What happens is once I try and number one, there's the video, which you won't see all the good questions in here. What I will do is I will provide some resources to where you can see my content. I'll make a booklet or something like that, or I'll put it as a resource to where you can get it. I'll also do a pitch. And again, I'm sorry, I do have to kind of pitch my wares here. I'm sorry, but I'll just do it because, you know, I always end up getting asked and requested. I did just create a book. It's called Learner Choice and Learner Voice. So this book right here just released in September. Learner Choice, Learner Voice this is the one that has over 100 ways for students to express themselves in authentic ways. And it's not just about me, the dry old professor that's just brainstorming a bunch of ideas. These are actually ideas that I worked with a teacher in the classroom, and we kind of generated like these cool resources and tasks and all these ideas. But it also explains why it's so important to kind of teach with what we call learner agency, where we try and give them more where we try and give them more agency, where we try to empower them to where they have their own student voice and their own student choice. Because you can teach any type of subject and you can get the students to express themselves in many different ways. So it's called Learner Choice, Learner Voice. I'll make sure that a link goes out there, and you can get that for relatively cheap amount. If there's a big interest in the, you know, between the interns, if there's a big group, I can always order them at you know, for a cheaper rate if people are interested. But I'll make sure that you all get this resource. I'll get the resource that I planned out and developed for you all to see and have. Okay. Yep. Some people interested.
That answered.
Okay.
Yeah.
Early childhood. I will say this is that there are going to be some resources that are going to be out there that might be for older kids, but there are ones out there. There are apps that you can use with younger ones. Oh my goodness. I ended up teaching my youngest using starfall.com. It's still out there. It's still active. It teaches phonics. It does seasons. It has everything. It's wonderful. It's called starfall.com. It is great. Phonics, letters, all sorts of things. Gripping is also very difficult to teach. Gripping, yes, it is. And I tell you what, doing it online is even tougher, Joanne. I probably don't have a great strategy for gripping. Teaching letter formation. A lot of time, Brenda, letter formation is tough at a distance, but a lot of times if you want to do it with manipulatives, a lot of times you do sand. We used to do shaving cream, anything that you can kind of erase easily that's non-toxic, they love. It helps them to kind of experience the letters. So sand works really well and it's cheap. Just you want to get like you want to get a real fine grainy sand, and also just be careful not to make it a mess, but they love to use sand to learn letters. Incorporate tactile. I'm sorry, I'm trying to go back. There's a lot of great questions, a lot of things. Tie these wonderful various assignment ideas into curriculum that is scripted and boring. Oh, Donna, that's the 6 million. A lot of times when it comes to curriculum, they give you the standards, they give you the objectives, they give you the curriculum. A lot of times they don't demand this is how you have to teach it. Doing a podcast is a way that you can assess. You can assess writing, you can assess listening and speaking skills. You can obviously do authentic assessment. You can grade their scripts if you want to, but they love to produce podcasts. They love to produce video, so they could do, there's all sorts of things that you can tie in. But yeah, I know, trust me, I get it. It's, you really want to start to almost develop what I call the teacher toolkit, like all these great ideas that you want to incorporate into the classroom. And again, I'm not trying to pitch, I'm not trying to listen. I don't make a lot of money off of books, but yes, Learner Choice, Learner Voice has 100 different ways for students to express themselves, 300 resources. Okay, last but not least, what I want you to do is I want you to tell me, and this is kind of like the last thing, what's one action that you promise that you're going to do after you leave tonight? The one thing that you promise that you're going to do, that you're going to take away from this lesson to make it worthwhile, that I'll feel like I'm good, that I'm stranding my kid at cross country late at night. What's one thing that you promise that you're going to do as a takeaway from this lesson, from this professional development activity? David said research instruction. Excellent. It's making my old heart warm. Good. Yep. Keep on learning. Absolutely. Build relationships. Excellent. Yep, Julian, don't be afraid to add new technology. Listen, don't get mad if technology fails you the first time. A lot of the times it's all about just learning through iteration. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. Don't get mad. Sometimes it's just learning. And I tell you what, the kids are very forgiving, especially if you're trying something cool and neat. They'll be forgiving if it sometimes blows up in our face. Yep, Lauren, just again, lecture's not bad. It's just when we overuse it.
I'm gonna look into that slide, man. I never heard that, like the one you said. Think smart, not hard. Work smart, not harder. You know,
Yep.
For the slides. For,
Yep, the
virtual
slides.
learning.
Yep, it's called. I think it's Slide Mania or Slides Mania. Yeah, I found that during the pandemic, and everybody loved it because it just and again, you can build your own. Sorry, my internet's starting to go out a little bit here. Yeah, you can build your own if you want to, but sometimes it's great to just have a resource that you can kind of make your own. Yep. Devani said, make learning interactive as possible. You're right. They should be the ones that are going home tired, not you. Although you're going to go home tired, I promise. They should be more tired. Involve students in lesson planning. Oh, it's just warm in my heart. I'll follow up with Jean Marie if anybody wants to do a book order. I can get it at a discount. I think it's typically got 30 or 40%. The book runs about probably about $30, give or take. I can probably get it at a discount, but I'd have to, there have to be like 10 or 15 people that are interested because I have to front the money and then somehow get it to you all. So if you're interested, I'll also put my email address. Worst comes to worst, I can at least just even give you the information to order the book yourself. All right, I have about 7 o'clock, so 60 minutes almost on the dot of when we started.
Yeah.
I think at this point I'm going to end it because everybody has great ideas. I know everybody's been teaching all day and they're tired. They want to spend some time with their families or, I don't know, get a stiff drink, whatever they want to do, they can. And I want to thank everybody for joining me. I really appreciate it. My email is in the box. I'm looking forward to working with you in the future. That is, if there's anything that you need, please reach out to me. And again, I can't thank you all enough. I love doing this for Jean Marie and for the interns and the teacher candidates. It's my favorite professional development to do every year.
Brian, you're the best. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone. 48 of you on the call tonight. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Bye.